Mattel has decided to discontinue a Barbie doll that is modeled after a SeaWorld trainer. In fact, it's referred to as the SeaWorld Trainer Barbie. And they haven't been very clear as to why they made this decision, but many are thinking that it has to do with the documentary that was released last year called Blackfish. Have you guys seen that documentary?
I haven't.
I've seen parts of it, not the whole thing. I mean, it's the kind of thing that if you're going to sit down and watch, you're going to be traumatized for a while.
Yes. So I watched Blackfish in its entirety, and it was beyond difficult to watch, especially because for the longest time, SeaWorld has been sold as such a loving, caring place for these, you know, beautiful animals to be in, but the reality is they're mistreated. They specifically talk about Tilikum, which was a killer whale that was involved in the death of 3 people that worked for SeaWorld. And it was just a very, very telling documentary. You guys should check it out.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Right. So, of course, SeaWorld has suffered the consequences of that documentary. And now people are saying, well, it's possible that Mattel has decided to discontinue this doll because it's really not good for the company to be associated with SeaWorld. The company said in a statement that it is disappointed in Mattel's decision to stop production of the SeaWorld Trainer Barbie. Of course, SeaWorld said that about their decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes sense, honestly.
Yeah, it's a whale of a decision. It needed to happen. I mean, it sounds like the timing sort of worked out. They had to renew their licensing contract with them and decided, okay, we're not going to work with SeaWorld anymore. There are plenty of other jobs. I'd like to see Explorer Barbie. I'd like to see, community organizer Barbie.
Biochemist Barbie?
Yes.
Biochemist Barbie.
Astronaut
Any
Barbie?
of those are better than SeaWorld Barbie because I think we've all found that what's going on there is controversial.
Maybe I'm cynical today, but again, I don't believe that this was some statement on behalf of Mattel, like, let's Barbie not do this. When I read this, I thought Barbie is like that mean girl that all picked on us in high school. When she wanted to be friends with you, she was.
Yeah.
And when it didn't serve her anymore, she didn't want to be friends with you. And in this same instance, their licensees was up, and so it was like, you were getting bad press, so let's go away. But if they weren't getting bad press, I think they would have stayed. Because if you think about it, Barbie's carbon footprint. It's a plastic doll that gets put in all this packaging, that gets thrown into minefields, and the amount of energy it takes to make one doll, the oil, everything else. I'm like, how could you really be so... I'm up in, I don't like what's happening in SeaWorld when you're doing such horrible stuff to our planet. I just did not buy this shit at all.
Yeah, not only the planet, but also people's perception of how young girls should look.
Exactly.
And all that.
You do just as much damage as SeaWorld has done. And all of a sudden now you have this moral conscience where it's like, we can't work with SeaWorld. I'm happy that they're not, because I don't want little girls to grow up thinking that would be an appropriate job because of what happens to these animals. But at the same rate, I'm not going to applaud Mattel and say, wow, you did a great job. The licensees was up and they were like, screw it. It's bad press. Put in another costume.
It kind of reminds me of the realist political ideology in foreign relations, right? It's usually... you make allies when it serves a purpose for you, right? So in this case, here is a brand, Mattel, that wants to only be involved in good press. And so do they sever ties with a company like SeaWorld if it's getting bad press? Of course, it's good for their bottom line. But also another thing to keep in mind, this is such a half measure if they were trying to make a statement, because they refuse to even say that they have severed ties as a result of Blackfish or as a result of the way they've been treating their killer whales. So I don't know what their whole point was, but look, at the end of the day, I like that people are getting the message about SeaWorld.
Yeah.
And just to give you a really, I guess, funny piece of trivia, so after Blackfish was released and it got its reviews, there was a poll done on December of 2013 by the Orlando Business Journal, and they asked, did this movie or this documentary change your perception of SeaWorld? Well, it turned out that the majority, 55%, said, no, it didn't. Okay.
Wow.
So, or over 55%, I should say. And then they did a little investigation into it, and they found out that 180 out of the 328 votes were by people working at SeaWorld.
Whoa.
Okay. So,
Okay. So
amazing.
Yeah, those results are a little skewed.
Yeah, very
A little
skewed.
bit.
I mean, I hope that the Blackfish blacklist grows, and
Yeah.
that and whatever the reasons or the strategy is, for for why. I'm heartened to see that, Mattel is not going to be working with SeaWorld anymore. And I also am heartened to see that art and documentary filmmaking is influencing some of these larger economic factors, whether it be, the dolls that your kid can buy, or ticket sales at SeaWorld.
But I don't think we should applaud Mattel. That's
No,
my
I
whole
don't
point.
think- yeah.
It's like applauding Mattel as if they did this grand gesture to save our animals and to save our world. No, they're business people. It was their bottom line. They were like, F off. We don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
But we don't really care, because if you cared, you would change your product completely.